Hello, I'm Chuck Martin, and this is the Voices of the Internet of Things. With me today is Jeff Mahler, co-founder and chief technology officer of Ambi Robotics. Jeff was co-founder and computer vision engineer at Lynx Laboratories, computer vision engineer at Occipital, and a postdoctoral scholar at the University of California, Berkeley. At Ambi Robotics, Jeff is responsible for guiding the vision and execution of the company's advanced operating systems. Welcome here, Jeff.
Thanks, Chuck. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad you're here as well. So tell us all about what is Ambi Robotics. I mean, I know what it is, obviously.
Yeah, so Ambi Robotics is all about helping people handle more with AI-powered robots with a focus on the supply chain, a world where volumes of packages that are being delivered through things like e-commerce is growing rapidly. And the job that it takes to actually go from a virtual shopping cart to your front door are increasingly tedious and in many ways injury prone because they involve a lot of repetitive motions, people lifting 50-pound boxes over their head constantly throughout the day. And so at Ambi Robotics, what we do is build human-centered machines that are based on robots, where people who were formerly sorting packages by hand can operate and work with the robots. The robot will do the repetitive motions, and people will respond to the robot's requests for help and tend to outputs that it generates, meaning if it fills up a container with packages, then a person's flagged over to come over and take those out. So we're really about transforming the supply chain into a more human-friendly environment, multiplying people's productivity, and bringing the new technology from AI and robotics to help do that.
So these are all in warehouses, correct?
Yes,
So what does the warehouse of today look like before you get there?
it's a great question. And there's a lot of variety to that. A lot of them are surprisingly fairly manual, meaning there's people grabbing things off of conveyor belts, sometimes in extreme cases in the peak holiday season, which is coming up for us. There might be piles of packages on the floor even that people are digging through and putting onto conveyor belts. But that is starting to change. There's starting to be more automation. There's been a lot of development in things like large sortation systems. Traditionally, these are huge conveyor belts. Now there's starting to be more mobile robots involved in this process, and also in what the industry called automated storage and retrieval systems, meaning you need to store all these goods. And if, say you order something on Amazon, it'll come out of that storage and retrieval system more or less automatically or come to a person to grab it. So we're starting to have more automation, but there's still a lot of people involved again in these repetitive motions where they're picking and maybe sorting and placing individual items.
How did you get involved in this?
So it started back in my PhD work. I was at UC Berkeley working with Professor Ken Goldberg, and we were looking at a more of an academic problem initially, which is how do we teach robots to pick up items they've never seen before? And there were all these advances coming out of deep neural networks and AI that we thought would be interesting to apply to this field. And one of the things we quickly noticed is that as opposed to fields like computer vision, where there's tens of millions of images from the internet to train AI models, we didn't have that kind of data for robotics. We came up with a way to train robots in a simulated world before going to the real world to tackle this problem. So the idea was if we can have robots in sort of a video game learn how to handle a wide variety of items and get much more experience than we could collect in, say, a day or a week in the real world, then we could much faster get an AI model that would work and be ready to use on day one in the real world. And that was a project called DexNet, very successful. And because of the success of that project, where we had coverage in the New York Times, MIT Tech Review, and so on, people from logistics started coming to us and saying, hey, we've got this problem. We have people handling these objects individually. It's really challenging. We have people quitting these jobs in droves. And can you help us out with that? And so we started taking a deeper look, and we learned quite a lot, and continually went in deeper and deeper and realized we could make a big impact in this field.
To simplify this, a robot has to, just in general, not yours, but all robots, they have to actually have seen every item to be able to identify so they know how to pick it up. And you did that automatically. Is that essentially it?
So that's how it used to be. You used to have to teach robots by showing them essentially a 3D model of exactly it was they were supposed to handle. And this is something that would be used in more traditional manufacturing lines where we've had robots for some time. But what was challenging is in the world of, say, e-commerce, where goods are constantly changing, you don't know what the robot will have to handle in advance. And what we want to do is give the robot a general capability to handle any item. AI gives us a way to potentially do that by recognizing what we would call in the research world grasp affordances. So for people, that would be the equivalent of we can look at a mug and we don't need to know exactly which mug it is, but we can recognize the handle on that mug as a place we can put our hand and grab something. And for robots, they don't have the same hands as people. They might have suction cups with vacuums. They might have two-finger pinch grippers, but they still have this same analogous capability, which is to recognize the affordance. Does it look like somewhere that it can place its hand and successfully grab an item? And we train that with this simulation to reality learning that I mentioned earlier.
Are they basically learning on the fly?
Yes, learning on the fly but from simulated data initially. And then as we go into the real world, we get more and more real data for it to learn from.
Can you talk about the case where a shoe was thrown in front of it and it identified the shoe?
Yes, happy to. So as we were developing this technology, we were surprised at how good it got at picking up random items. And we ended up getting an invite to present our system to Jeff Bezos at his Mars 2018 conference in Palm Springs. And so we took the robot, we took the whole lab down there, and my other co-founders of Ambi Robotics as well, Stephen McKinley, David Gailey, and Matt Model went down there and set up the robot for basically him to see and play around with. And we had an instance where one of his associates was trying to see how good it really was at picking up random items because we had brought our own. He took off his shoe and put it in the bin, and we were a little nervous, but the robot, without missing a beat, was able to pick up that shoe and pick it right out of the bin. And this happened many times with items like necklaces, avocados, cigars. We had a whole host of things.
Well, you can't be faking it if you do that.
Right.
So your machines, they basically they stack things, they sort things, and you deal with data. Which of those, if there's one, is more important than the other? Where do they fall in relation to each other?
It's a really important question. And I think that, first of all, I just want to stress there's many, many different things that have to happen throughout the supply chain from sorting to stacking to packing and packaging. And for this reason, I would say that solving these sorts of data-centric problems are actually really important as a way to solve any of these problems in the future. So by that, I mean, I guess I'll explain further. We have a software platform at Ambi Robotics. We call it Ambi OS, and that allows us to have sort of a shared brain that all of these robots can operate with. It's a set of skills like stacking and packing and picking items that can be downloaded onto the machine to perform these tasks with very high reliability and across many, many different items that the robot may not have seen before. And as we fuel that platform with more and more data, we're able to perform better on the existing tasks like sorting and stacking, but also perform new tasks like packing items, and stacking was recently introduced as part of this process. So that's really what we consider the most fundamental. And we are very excited about stacking as well because the same way that data is compressed when it travels around on the internet, items have to be packed together for transport. And it's very common for items to go onto a pallet and be a big stack of boxes on that pallet before they're sent around. And so building those units is a really important operation. It has huge scale, and we think it's a great way for us to help.
So is the big thing in terms of your operation is the advancement of AI that made this all capable and feasible?
Yes, it's the advancement in AI as well as compute systems that kind of go in conjunction with AI as things like NVIDIA GPUs have become more capable, and AI techniques along with that have gotten better to better, better and better. And we've also developed our own proprietary algorithms for how to jumpstart the AI training with data by training in a virtual world first. That has made this possible for the first time.
So when you go into a warehouse or a warehouse contacts you and says, "Hey, what can you do for us?" What does that look like? How do you start even?
Yeah, that's a really important question as well. So we have a portfolio of different products that we offer, like Ambi Sort and Ambi Stack, which do exactly what they sound like. And we do have a number of other sort of product concepts where if a customer comes to us, we'll kind of walk them through what our current offerings are and also use that as a way to jumpstart a conversation about what are their problems. And we're looking for understanding key variables like how many items are processed in a day, what are their hours of operation, how fast do they need to sort items, what accuracy requirements do they have, and we'll try to figure out if there's a fit or not. And we're very transparent with folks about if we don't think there's a fit, what we can talk about again in the future if we think that changes. But we want to make sure that we're providing robots where they really are providing the right kind of value for customers.
So when a warehouse comes to you or company, do they know what their problems are?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You know, folks in logistics are very conservative, and I think that's a strength of theirs in the sense during the holiday season, if something goes wrong and you fail to deliver on a lot of customer orders, around Cyber Monday, then that can mean life or death for your company. And so if you have something that has worked in the past, it's a smart thing to do to kind of go back and rely on that because you know that it's should likely remain reliable again. But it's not always the case, right? And sometimes things don't scale well as more volume comes in. And so sometimes customers will have had a pain point. For example, we've seen cases where the execs have had to been dropped into a warehouse during the holiday season to help sort packages by hand. In cases like that, they're very acutely aware of these kind of issues and the desire to help automate. But in other cases, they may have been sort of doing things kind of business as usual, and we'll have a conversation with them and see something in their building that they weren't thinking about and share a bit about with them about what's possible, and then the light bulb will go off and be like, wow, yeah, that's a huge productivity multiplier for my building, and let's take a deeper look.
Typically, are they looking in general, are they looking for cost savings or growing revenue? Can you tell? Or both?
It depends. Yeah, it depends a lot. I would say that a lot of what the customers care about at the end of the day is improving the reliability of their operations without increasing costs. So they want to see some cost savings, but I would say a big driver is increasing dependability, and especially when there's a manual operation. And some of our customers have had 9 and 10 workers leaving a full-time job within a year, which sounds crazy, but it's essentially a revolving door. That's not going to be a super reliable process when you need it to function well. And so bringing in automation that can help improve that reliability is really, really important. And then, yeah, cost reduction with supporting an increase in scale. There's a lot of growth happening in the industry, so customers want to be able to support that next tier of capacity that they need to handle in the future. And of course, reduce costs along the way as they do that.
And when you deploy, do companies generally say, give us the whole thing, or just do this little thing, we'll see if that works, then we'll do something else? Or how does it generally, is there any typical way?
So they often are buying from us at minimum, a complete robot. So that would be Ambi Sort. There's a minimum viable robot that you can buy, which essentially to the warehouse operator looks like a black box where you can put in a bin of packages and get out 66 sorted bags on the output, sorted by however you like, zip codes or some other sort codes like local facility IDs, something like that. But there can be add-ons to that. We can do different configurations. We can have conveyors that feed packages to the robot. Sometimes there'll be a bigger project involving many robots and some collaboration between those, if you will. Maybe there's conveyance that's diverting packages to one robot or another. But that's sort of what we're selling. So there's a machine, and then there's add-ons that you can have on top of that. And one other thing that comes with it is software. So there's cloud-based software where customers can get real-time visibility into what's happening on the robots. How are they performing? How many packages a day? also what sort of issues have come up. And this is another exciting thing about robots is that because they, by their very nature, they have to be sort of collecting data on all the little motions they do. That data can be used to help customer operations where all of a sudden they have a window into things like how much time did it really take to handle these loose floppy bags versus a nice well-formed box, which helps them understand how to improve the operation as a whole, and in some cases, how they can better charge their customers because the cost of handling certain packaging is more than others, and so it's really exciting to provide that visibility as well.
Aren't there a lot of other robot companies doing similar things or are other like moving things around factory floors and stuff? Do you deal with, I mean, how do they pick you guys over somebody else?
Yes, so there's a number of other robot companies out there, and certainly a lot of them in mobile robots, which is sort of adjacent and collaborative with what we do. There can be mobile robots taking products to our machines or taking them away from our machines, which is something we're really excited about. Then there's other robot picking and sorting companies, and amongst those, many of them are doing different types of tasks. So today, if you look for robotics companies on the internet, you'll see all kinds, and it might seem like they're out there everywhere. But again, most warehouses are pretty manual, and so there's a lot of opportunity where we as Ambi have created unique solutions to solve unique sorting and stacking challenges. And other companies have completely different solutions, like unloading a truck directly. That's something you may see a lot about today with companies like Boston Dynamics and Pickle. And so we don't compete directly against them. In fact, in some cases, we work directly with them. They could be unloading a truck directly into the Ambi Stack machine or so on. So a lot more of the conversation today with customers is about whether or not they stick with their manual process or whether or not they decide to upgrade into automation.
You do this as a service as opposed to selling them a machine, right?
That's right. So it's somewhat like a monthly rental. They commit to 4 years or more in some cases and pay monthly to get all inclusive hardware, software updates, service, including a spares program. So they are stocked. And if something breaks, it can be fixed very quickly on site. All of that comes with it.
So a year from now, we're sitting here having the same conversation. What would we be talking about?
I think we could be talking a lot more about stacking and some of the things that are happening there. So AmbiStack is the product we just announced um, in January this year, and we deployed the first ones into production, which we're super excited about. They're operating with customers already today. There's a backlog of orders for those into 2026. And so we've got a lot of work fulfilling all of that demand and having them continue to improve because when we go into the field, we collect real data and the AI gets better over time. So we're really excited about that. And one of the key things on that line is stacking is an interesting problem where it involves some reasoning about the consequence of your actions in the future. Meaning, if a robot has an empty pallet and it gets a small, fragile box, does it place that now or does it put it aside to wait till later? And of course, it should put it aside. And these kinds of things um, make a big impact on how well you can do this problem. And so modern AI techniques, things like learning from sequences, which things like ChatGPT are doing when they look at sequences of words or tokens and respond to you, those are impacting our ability to do things like stacking much better. And so we're really excited about turning our data flywheel and improving the AI as we get more data from this product line.
Well, I look forward to that conversation. Thank you, Jeff Mahler, and thank you all listening for the Voices of the Internet of Things. I'm Chuck Martin.
Thanks, Jeff.